We have some breaking news as the New York Rangers have surprisingly decided to re-sign Kaapo Kakko to a contract extension, and it has fans and media puzzled with what's going to happen next for the New York Rangers and the New York Rangers forward. We're going to break all of that down, but before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 80% of you who are watching our videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, so if you want to do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. For stuff like this, the draft is coming up, free agency, and of course, next season where the New York Rangers are looking to win a Stanley Cup. They are in a cup window, but without further ado, we'll jump right into it. Big news this afternoon and some shocking news. Honestly, I was not expecting this personally to come out at this point. I thought that they were probably just going to qualify him and be on their way, and they have not. The New York Rangers have made some news this afternoon. First Rangers videos had this, and I mean a couple other outlets and insiders. We'll get to it in a second. The Rangers have agreed to terms with Kaapo Kakko on a 1-year, $2.4 million qualifying offer. Now, there is some confusion around this. We're not entirely sure at the point of this recording if it is a qualifying offer. It doesn't sound like it is. It sounds like it is a contract, a new contract, right? And Frank Seravalli said that the New York Rangers re-up Kaapo Kakko on a 1-year deal at $2.4 million, which is exactly what his qualifying offer would have been later this month, because those qualifying offers are due on June 30th, right before free agency, and the Rangers get some cost certainty out of this, and obviously some low risk for the New York Rangers as well, because it is only 1 year, and he's making exactly what he was going to make anyway on a qualifying offer. And if he doesn't work out, worst case scenario, he walks, and you don't really lose much because his output hasn't been fantastic, or you trade him for something during the season. And again, that's worst case scenario. We're going to focus on the positives as much as we can in this one. This seems like a prove it deal to me. This certainly is a prove it deal. Come out next year and prove to us why you should be A, in the top 6, and B, stay on the team. Why you should be a part of the New York Rangers, because he has not even close or come close to reaching his ceiling yet as a player, right? I just made a video earlier about should the Rangers move on from this player. Clearly, they're not going to do that. They're going to give him 1 more year. And, some fans say for good reason. Some fans would rather see him gone in that lineup position given to somebody else or another asset, whether it be through free agency or trade. But again, if the Rangers are going to make a big splash, we'll get into it later in the video too, they're going to have to trade a big asset in return just because of salary cap and salary cap structure with the team. But again, very interesting. And I talked about it in another video too. Chris Drury, he likes this player. He does not want to give up on this player yet. Chris Drury said on pending RFA, but not so much pending RFA anymore, Kaapo Kakko, as he was re-signed today. We were talking about Laff at this time last year, and talking about rumors and all that he wanted to trade him. Kaapo Kakko is still a young player. We're going to continue to try and find everything we can do to help him reach his potential, and I do like that from the GM. I do like that in a way. Personally, I was leaning more towards maybe you should move on from this player, but now that he's signed, he's part of the team, what can we do to help him? And I think the Rangers, for a second to touch on, the Rangers have a very hard time developing players, right? They draft players and they kind of throw them into the NHL and hope that they work. So the Rangers do have a bit of a hard time developing players. So to hear this from the GM, I think that's encouraging, right? They do want to work with this player, see what he has, because he is a skillful player, and he has a big frame, right? He's a big body. He should be able to play in the playoffs. So what can they do with him? I think they need to work together with this player. So I did like that quote. And he continued to say, too, that I think Kaapo is a real good young player. He had some injury trouble this year, which is true as well. He missed some time, battled back, but we're going to continue to try and find everything we can do to help him reach his potential, very similar to what we just discussed. And when you look at the potential lineup for next year, Kakko is in the top 6 because of the salary cap, right? You're losing quite a few players there. And Kaapo looks like, projected to be in the top 6. Can he hang with the top 6? It's going to be a very interesting thing to discuss heading into next season. And from Kyle Hall as well, had a great conversation with a former NHL exec/scout last night about the Rangers and what the offseason could look like for them. He believes their current cap situation and no trade clauses restrict Drury from making a splash, and he believes you'll see basically the same lineup next year in 2024-25. So, of course, barring free agency moves and any big splashes, this is kind of what we'll see next season. And Kaapo was slotted in there, like I said, in the top 6 on that second line. And he's going to have to prove it. he will have to prove it. And it goes both ways. It has to do with the coach too. And we'll get into his stats here in a second and what Laviolette thinks of the player as well. But yes, it's true. He is still a very young player, and he has a big frame. Like I mentioned, he should be able to play in the playoffs and kind of adapt his game. He should be playing better, right? We should be seeing more of what he can offer as that former second overall pick. He played 61 games this year dealing with injuries and only picked up 19 points. And I think a lot of the problem too is his time on ice. He's only averaging between 10 to 15 minutes of time on ice a game this past season. So he's not getting time or playing with the right players to be able to put up points either, right? So it goes hand in hand, and we'll get into what Laviolette thinks here. And he says, in my conversation with Kaapo, I took my responsibility. As a coach, I didn't find it with him. Laviolette said this after stating that he believed that Kaapo does still have top 6 potential. And it's true. Like, a lot of the organization still believes in this player, that he can play in the top 6. He goes on to say, I think he's a good player, and we were all hoping he would take another step. My responsibility as a coach is to unleash these players. You hope it happens with all of them, but with some it doesn't, and I have to figure out a better way to get him involved. There's responsibility on him too, which I totally agree with. What he brings to the table and what he brings to the game. So clearly within the organization, I mean, the coach still thinks that there's something there. The GM still thinks that there's something there with this player, but it's up to the player as well. You have to make use of your ice time. And I'm trying to see things from both sides here, right? I'm trying not to be too hard on the player or the coach. But the coach has a responsibility to use this player correctly to his skill set. So if he's wasting him on third or fourth line minutes, it's not correct, right? This player has to play with better players to kind of get going and utilize his skill set. He does, but you have to help him along the way too, and how to play in the playoffs and get used to things like that. Because I do think there's potential for him to still be a very useful player for this organization. On the other hand, Kaapo Kakko, you have to make use of your time on ice. All right, 19 points. We'll get into it again here. 19 points is not good enough in 61 games. It just isn't for somebody who is slated to be on the top 6 of a potential Stanley Cup winning team next year, or what fans want to be a Stanley Cup winning team next year. So pretty interesting news drop here for the New York Rangers. Again, they have agreed to terms with Kaapo Kakko on a 1-year, $2.4 million contract. It is the exact same amount of money he would have got on a qualifying offer later this month anyway. It's a 1-year deal, very low risk, I think, for the Rangers, besides the fact that you're spending $2.4 million on him. I know some fans would have rather moved on from him already, but let me know in the comments what you think. Right? I think it goes both ways. I totally do. I think some of it's on the coach, where he has to utilize this player better, and I think the player has to show the coach what he can bring to the table, right, for this team next year, and if he really wants to be here. It's going to be a prove-it year for Kaapo Kakko, and I'm very interested to see how it goes. So let me know in the comments what you think of the contract extension, if they should move on from him, if it's going to work out. Let me know everything. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way out, because we're going to keep you updated for everything like this with the New York Rangers. All the breaking news leading into the draft, free agency, and of course, next season.